Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's new Cyber Frontier.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. On here today with me in the studio, we have Gary Whittset, who is a local legend in his own mind. We're good. Gary, welcome today. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So Gary is one of the leads here, director level at SecureSet, I believe.
That's correct.
And one of the students' favorite instructors. I hear from all of them, right?
Some of them.
But we're glad to have you on today, Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah, I always like to start out with and say, tell us about yourself. Give us something personal.
Okay.
You know, how's your background? What was little Gary Whittset like?
Well, we won't go that far back, but I started, my adult career in the Navy, as did so many other people.
Yeah, we have quite a few Navy people here, and myself as well.
Yep. I cut my teeth in computers back in the early 80s when I was still in grade school. And, I've always taken to the computers. So even in the Navy as an electrician, I was responsible for the computers back before we had networking. I learned how to do a lot of the coding on my own. I went to school for math. But
math? What,
I got a bachelor's in math.
Mathematics? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. And then I've got my MBA. As well. And on the MBA, I finally started realizing that cybersecurity was something I was interested in. So, master's in business with a focus on the cyber side. Mm-hmm. So, along with some English minor and
here, I believe, working on a doctorate now, right?
I've started working on a doctorate. Yep. Still haven't quite figured out what I'm focused on, but it's somewhere in the blockchain.
Yeah, we got some ideas for you.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, and that actually leads to some of what I'm hoping to talk about today. So,
yeah, well, that's good. Gary here also is one of my co-founders in the blockchain development community that we run here locally.
Absolutely.
And a big asset to me. Helps
Appreciate
me
that.
in many more areas than you can imagine. But that's why I said I know all the students love him.
Yep.
But we get some good times going on here.
Absolutely.
So what were your thoughts? You said for what your big concerns, your big areas.
So one of the things we see a lot is that there's 3 million open cyber jobs right now. I in doing some research for this, I saw it on the CISO online. I saw it on SC Magazine. We always see the numbers in that kind of magnitude. And yet when you get on monster.com or LinkedIn and look at some of the open jobs, we never see anywhere near that 3 million. And
so job seekers are always like, where is this?
Right.
You told me there's all these open jobs. I've been applying to all these jobs and I don't hear anything.
So I think it's a double-edged sword, right? From a student point of view, from a entry-level point of view, we hear about how great cyber is as a job and how many open jobs there are, but they can't find them. And then as a hiring manager, I'm aware that there's a number of open jobs, and whether the number is 200,000 or 3 million doesn't matter if I've got an open position that I can't fill, right? And I think so both sides of that leads to some misconception. Yes.
It's kind of like a matching algorithm need, right, with your mathematics background, right?
Yep.
Which one matches with what, and why is there difficulty on both sides if there's such a need?
Absolutely. And where are we going from here because of it, right? So on the learner side, I think one of the disparities that we see is what constitutes an entry-level job, right? Mm-hmm. I cringe every time I see an entry-level job that has CISSP listed as a requirement, because
Well, just saying, we're hitting time. We're going to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back, but that's a great place to end because CISSP, we'll talk about that in entry level when we come back.
Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. On here with Mr. Gary Whittset, talking about entry-level jobs and CISSP requirement, right? So expound on why that is a mismatch.
So, I mean, as most of us know, CISSP requires 5 years experience on top of passing the exam. If you hit 5 years of experience, that really doesn't constitute an entry-level job. Now, where I see that there's maybe some wiggle room is somebody who's career transitioning from a straight IT job into IT cyber may be able to have enough networking or sysadmin to be able to get the CISSP with some self-study. But they still don't have, a solid enough cyber background to necessarily say that they've got 5 years of experience in cyber.
Yeah. So you are a CISSP.
I am, yes.
I am a CISSP. I know what it took to get there, and basically, I didn't sit for that exam, that credential, until I'd been in cybersecurity for over a decade. And back when I took it, people asked me, what does sissy mean after your name? So I would leave it off. It wasn't even a selling point back then. It has become lately.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that was probably the most grueling exam that most people say they've ever taken. So it's definitely, that's the mismatch. Just not an entry level thing. And I don't even think that somebody that was exposed to cybersecurity, like my students with a bachelor's degree, probably couldn't sit for that exam.
Absolutely not. That's not enough knowledge. Absolutely.
No. So somebody just passively in IT, I don't even think would be it.
So one of the problems I have, that because the CISSP is focused on the management side more than anything else, if you come up through any kind of technical side, there's a savviness to the questions that you're just not going to have. So you're going to either answer it from a straight technical point of view and struggle, or you're going to try to answer it the best you can as a manager, but you've never had that experience. So coming straight out of a bachelor's degree, no, probably not. Even if you've done sysadmin in high school and put yourself through college doing it, corporate America is different, which is really what the CISSP is focused at. At the same time, 8570 changed the playing field for CISSP because they started requiring Sec Plus and CISSP in order to hit the different levels, right? They really put an emphasis on CISSP that wasn't there prior to 8570.
Explain 8570. Some people.
So 8570 is the government requirements that says basically if you're touching any kind of cyber role, that you need to have a certain level of understanding. So Security Plus is usually an entry level, so level 1. CISSP would be a level 2 or level 3 technical, and then there's a few other things that you can get along the way.
So just for people that might not understand it, CISSP is Certified Information System Security Professional.
Yep.
Security Plus is another credential through CompTIA that is exam and everything, and you have to have so much experience for both, and then take the exam, pass it, and then you get to have a credential after your name and your title.
Correct. Yep.
But yeah, I would circle back around, and now let's question the 8070, the government requirement to get certifications, because that's the government.
Right.
And around here, we have a lot of government work, and I know a lot of your students are coming out of the military here at SecureSet. Yes. Looking to get the education to go back into government with that security focus. And that's the big focus of what you do here, is prepare people from another career to be able to, boom, hit the ground running in cybersecurity and make that pay increase and fill those jobs. But let's say the government requires credentials, these. Private sector, maybe not so much so. You might look at it as...
I think for more senior level positions, you'll see the 8570. In fact, I've got some statistics on this.
Oh yeah. So let's hear where do these fit in?
So I did a search on Monster just this morning, and there was 186,000 jobs under IT security. But when I searched for CISSP, 8,410 came up. Now that was a worldwide search. I didn't put any other criteria in besides IT security and CISSP. So 8,000 versus 168,000.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm doing a search on my own while you're talking.
USA Jobs, which is the government focus. When I did IT security, 1,794. When I did CISSP, 6.
Now, reiterate that one. I missed the
So-
big gap difference there.
So USA Jobs,
Uh-huh.
right? They are focused. This is a government site where they have government listed jobs. So
Gotcha.
you have to be eligible to work for the government to actually apply for these jobs. And yes, 1,794. Call it 1,800 jobs versus 6 that explicitly called out to CISSP. Now, I
Interesting.
did not search for 8570. If I had done that, maybe the disparity would be not quite so much. But I mean, a single-digit job for CISSP, even on the government site where they're focused on this, that's quite a difference.
Interesting. Have you ever been on the site? It's called cyberseatorg.
I have not. No.
It's now a NIST site,
Okay.
and they have interactive job maps. And I recommend to anybody you can check out this. It's really a neat thing. Trying to find my mouse here. Cyberseatorg, and it takes every state. You can then break it down by metro areas.
Very good. Yep.
And I always question the numbers I see on here, even though they
Yeah.
update and they're current all the time. Where are they getting them? Because the same thing that we started out with, we have this big disparity everybody talks about. Your students coming out of here with the knowledge to get those positions are where are they at?
So-
applied to 100 companies. Where?
Right, and we do have a very good placement rate here, and so I mean I can tell you that the skills are in demand.
I
But-
know that too.
But what does that mean? It's not necessarily here. Many of our students move out of this area to find jobs. But I'll tell you what has always bothered me about these statistics: the number of times I've been laid off. Right? How can we say that there's this huge of a shortage if they're laying off cybersecurity people?
And I'm in the same boat as you, and not only the number of times that there's shakeups in the cybersecurity industry, and I won't even say that I've been laid off. I know I've been laid off twice in my life, and one time was
I
because
was laid off twice in the same year.
one time was because my project went classified, and it was a clearance thing,
Okay.
and my clearance was still in adjudication. Anyway, and the other time was just in one of the things I'm going to talk about now. That the cybersecurity industry has gone through these gluts, these
Yep.
drop out of the bottom. And I've seen 3 of them in my time. And I think this is maybe even what we're talking about here. Is it becomes politically uncool. And for some reason or another, and back in 2013 was the last one I remember. And it was right after the Snowden thing. And
Right.
it was in question of what was cybersecurity's role, what was the government role, what was Big Brother. And everything about cybersecurity became bad and Big Brother and spying all at the same time. Politically, the government pulled back on so much funding. Half of the people I knew in the industry were out of work.
Yeah.
Going to work in hotels and part-time jobs here and there. And it was everybody at the same time. And
I
if you didn't have a programming skill to fall back on,
Right.
or IT or something else, you were just on the street.
Yep.
And then we come 3 years later, 2016, we don't have enough people in the industry. The reason why is because politically, in 2013 to 2015, we just thinned everybody out.
Yep. Yep. And I think there's a hidden component to this, and that is once you get up to a certain level of knowledge and skills in the IT cyber world, there's a huge gap between that point and advancement. And by that I mean you end up with a lot of lateral opportunities, but not a lot of advancement opportunities. And then that giant leap into senior management, up into the C-level, it's hard to break through that ceiling.
Yeah, and this is a good time to take a little bit of a break and hear
Okay.
from our sponsors. But that's exactly what we're going to talk about when we come back. We'll be right back after we hear from our sponsors.
Murray Security Services are your cybersecurity experts with decades of experience providing professional training services for our clients in various industries. We offer professional training and certification in areas of cybersecurity, safety, health, and environmental services at our academy. Our in-person and online training provides a collaborative environment where students can interact directly with instructors through live chats or in private classrooms. Visit murraysecurityservices.com for more information.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. Here talking with Mr. Gary Whittset, who has some insight and numbers into the job market, and talking about that perceived gap between, or real, whatever, between, hey, all these jobs are out there. At least somebody's saying they are, and the searches say they are. But our students aren't, they're applying to 100 jobs before they find something. They're moving around. There seems to be a disparity there. And it might be a hiring process, maybe whatnot, but you just hit on something before the break where we were talking about the senior people in cybersecurity. And I've seen that as well. I think there's a big gap kind of between, I'm a technical person. I come up through the technical. I've learned all my technical understanding and everything. And now I'm going from my senior engineer, senior operations, senior analyst or whatever. And the only way for me to advance is to go into an executive or a director level position. And bridging that gap, I think a lot of what we see with like the CIO and CISO positions is those are business people that are trying to learn the technical. And promotion at that level usually stops, and there's a big glass ceiling for technical people. That's what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I was naively thinking when I got my MBA that I would be looking at, executive level positions from there. Mm-hmm. And my first job out of college like that was directly into a technical role. And I've never really been able to, I've made it up to manager, and I was very successful. But I couldn't get beyond manager at that point.
Yeah, it seems like at that point we run into this, I think it's an older dilemma of management colleges and technical colleges are separate. The whole body of knowledges are separate. The lingo is separate.
Yep.
The acronyms, the speak, is separate.
Yep.
And whenever you are a technical person, you reach that senior level and you're looking at executive management, the people you're competing against have been MBAs for 15 years. They've moved up through the corporate ladder. They understand the whole business aspect. And not just that you don't, but they speak the lingo of the other side, which is that across that divide.
Correct.
So we're looking at, I think, at that, that's a separate conversation than the jobs gap for entry-level people. But it is definitely separation of vocations almost.
Well, it is different, but at the same time, it's the same, right? So when we say that there's these 3 million jobs available, a good percentage of those are considered entry level. So there's good opportunities, and I think the students that are graduating are seeing that, that the difficulty in finding a job in cyber today is much easier than it was 15, 20 years ago.
Gotcha.
But the advancement opportunities from there, the only way to advance in a lot of jobs is to switch companies. And so I can tell you from some conferences when I was the manager, I would see other conference attendees walking around with a sticky note on their badge saying, "I am hiring." And when I talk to them, I say, "Why are you hiring?" I just literally trained your people on these cyber skills. And they say, "Well, because all my people moved on." And so I think the problem at that point became a retention problem. And so I'd say, "Well, what are you doing to retain them?" "I don't have a retaining budget." "What are you doing to train them?" "I don't have a training budget." "So what are you doing?" "I'm hiring new people."
So you think that the solution is more in the lines of give your people room to advance and they'll stay.
Yes.
And right now the job market has no loyalty because the only way to advance is to change roles.
I see that all the time. I've done it. I've quit one job because the next job's giving me 30% more pay.
Uh-huh. And if you're just continuously looking for pay, you're not engaged and passionate about what you're doing. You're just looking for.
Well, and I'll tell you, the companies that have kept me longer term are the ones that have given me opportunities for additional training, opportunities to go to RSA or Black Hat or other conferences.
So even just training.
Just training.
Advancing your career. A company that helps you advance your career.
Well, think about the trainings that are available to us. A 5-day training with some of the big training companies in our country was $1,000 a day. I can't pay that out of pocket.
And companies are expecting people to be up with the industry,
Absolutely.
but not have a budget for continued education.
Absolutely.
Interesting thing is I've seen that even at the university level.
Sure.
Where universities are like, we want to hire the best instructors. And they're like, okay, what's my continued education budget? What?
Yep.
You're supposed to be learning on your own. Or come back and take our classes. You can pay for them.
Well, and that's what I tell those managers, because we'd have good conversations about it. And I'd say, look, if you've got a hiring budget but you don't have a training budget, turn that around. Make your hiring budget into a training budget, but put them on a plan. Don't just randomly. Okay. Tell them, hey, in 6 months you're going to get this training. 6 months later you're going to get this training. 8 months later, set out a plan.
So do you think that has to go with it? Also increases in pay, because
increases in pay, increases in responsibility. Yes.
So they have to have a whole plan that says these are our top talent. Yep. And this is in probably in any industry. It's like this is our top talent. If we want to keep them, we have to continue to let them grow.
Absolutely.
And that's what the biggest biological trigger for attraction is acceleration.
Absolutely.
The knowledge that next year is going to be better than this year is what keeps people staying. People don't stay for money.
Not at all.
So
well, to a bit.
to a bit, but they do for 2 years and they move on to the next higher pay.
And that's the point. Is where people were.
But if you trigger
6
that
months.
human desire that knowledge that next year is going to be better than this year, that acceleration feeling. This is what the big tech companies that are continuously growing do. You hear people wanting to line it up, go work for Google. Let me get in and pay me as little as you can. I'll come work for you anyway, because they see the growth in those big companies, and it's an attractive. It hits that biological human nature for attraction.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, in industries where it's like, we're making paper checks, and next year, we're going to have less people than this year, and every year is going to be layoffs. Nobody wants to work in those environments.
Well, and you've hit on what I consider one of the key points, and that is that automation is part of our answer, right? So how do we move forward on this lack of cyber skills? I think that we're about to see a new renaissance in technology, because blockchain, machine learning, data analytics, these are big players in the upcoming field. Mm-hmm. And what they're going to allow us to do is more with less, right? We don't need as many people if we've got good data analytics in the cyber world. However, it's going to end up being more people in the long run, because we need the people trained now in data sciences, in blockchain, and some of the others. So I still think we're going to face the shortage. It's just going to be different than what it is right now.
So more with less. And even Governor Hickenlooper, when I talked to him, he said, hey, we're working ourselves out of work. So many people are worried that the more automation we do, the less people we need, and eventually do we need people at all?
Well, you're always going to need the human element if we're looking for the human element.
That's true. Yeah. Just takes on a different role.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Now I lost track of where we were at. It's like,
This is a broad topic.
Broad
for sure.
topic. I always wonder too about the whole AI thing, and it seems like every science fiction movie, show, book of our time talks about
the Terminator.
The computers taking over, getting smart enough to realize they don't need the people anymore. And plugging them all into a matrix and using them as power cells, right? So as much as that question is out there and everybody's exploring it in science fiction, we are not slowing down at all in our desire to meet it head on and find out for sure.
Right.
What about that?
So the simple answer is computers are logical and humans are not. I don't think we could ever design a computer that can get beyond the randomness of human thought. People are going to, I had a manager once. I always loved this. I had a manager once, and my task was to put together a web page for us. Mm-hmm. And I put it together and I gave it to my manager, and he immediately broke it. And I said, how did you break it? I tested against this and this and this. And he said, well, I'm using this browser. Why would you use that? It's still supported by the company. It's just, old. I won't upgrade until they tell me it's no longer supported. Randomness. Everybody else in the company was using this other browser. So you just don't, you can't count on the predictability. We're always going to find a way to break the system. And there's always somebody looking to break the system.
Yeah, a lot of people take pride in that aspect.
They do. Keeps us employed.
Yeah. So, you come up with a bunch of stats. Anything else you had that you found, or your thoughts on how to bridge kind of this?
Well, I was looking at InfoAge. They had an article in December, and they had a number of things that they were talking about. Another one that I think is really going to drive the future is the GDPR and similar legislations, right? Because as we get more savvy about what cyber and cyber technologies can do, and more along the lines of what the breaches do, and at the same time try to maintain privacy, right? I think that this is one of the reasons why we need to have the automation in place, right? So this is going to be a driver on that. And the other one, this one actually scares me. Data theft has been huge in the last few years, right? Right down to ransomware, things like that is a form of theft. But what scares me is the next iteration of this is going to be data mismanagement, right? Changing the data. So not just
misrepresentation. So,
I mean, we see it right now with fake news, right? With articles on Facebook or others that are adversely influencing people's opinion with absolute fake news, right? The conspiracy theories.
That's kind of what the election controversy
Absolutely.
last election was. Hey, did anybody really do anything wrong? They haven't found anything wrong that I've heard of, but they did have a lot of
Influence.
people influencing with
Sure.
fake news, possibly questionable things.
Absolutely.
Is this right or is it just made up? Who can tell anymore, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, and it colors the way we read the news today, even on our trusted news sites. But I think the next iteration is going to be going in and actually manipulating the data instead of just ransoming it off. Mm-hmm. Because if we can actually start manipulating the data, that's a huge thing. And then we end up in a situation where how do we validate the data that we already have? Mm-hmm. And this is why I think one of the futures is got to be blockchain. Mm-hmm. Because that will help. I mean, it becomes an immutable view of our data. So even if our data gets manipulated, the blockchain will help us at least spot that.
Yeah, and I know I'm on board with that, and I think we get that creating a forensic
Absolutely.
chain of here's what I do want to be trusted later, and I'm going to positively identify it, package it, and let everybody know that they can trust it.
Yep, and then even on the legal side, the GDPR side, we can show that forensic chain and say, this is why I can state categorically here in court this opinion.
Yeah, and definitely. So, in kind of reaching the top of our half hour here, I wanted to give the opportunity to put out anything you want our listeners to know, to get a hold of you, to get engaged with, things you're involved with, anything you want our audience to know.
So, I mean, I'm involved in a lot of projects. Like I said, I'm looking at research projects now. So I'm always learning something new, as most of us are. The easiest way to reach me probably is through LinkedIn, Gary Whittset, all one word, on LinkedIn.
Yeah, as representing SecureSet Academy, give us 20 seconds on what they do here and how you get involved.
So SecureSet Academy is a boot camp program. We take people from almost zero knowledge in IT and in security, and we train them up on networking, security, crypto, all the things that they need to know to come into an entry-level type position.
Yeah, and definitely the blockchain development community, get involved with that.
Yep.
Blockchaindevelopmentcommunity.com, anybody that wants to jump on and check out the information there.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining today, Gary.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember, please follow and participate as New Cyber Frontier is supporting a grassroots community effort to empower the individual in the digital age. Check it out at privacyforthepeople.org. Also, make sure to join our mailing list so we can keep you informed. If you have an idea, if you have a question you would like to hear answered, or if you just want to get involved in what we're doing, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors links because they are the ones that really make this show possible. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.